Last night, another installment of the MCU dropped, and it was pretty good, and it wasn't the one released in theaters. We got the finale of Season 2 of Loki, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on Season 2 of Loki. This will be a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away down below in the comment section. No need for spoiler warning. They have been warned by the title of this video as well as this announcement right here. And if you haven't watched Season 2 of Loki yet, go watch it, then come back, join the conversation over here. Now, as of the last several months, really the last several years, there's been a lot of chatter about Marvel Studios and their excessive use of reshoots. Now, reshoots are, for big productions, just kind of part of the scheduled program. That you just say, hey, let's schedule a couple of weeks to do reshoots to pick up some random shots that we missed here and there, fill in any gaps. If something didn't work, just want to be able to fill in a little gap. A week or two of reshoots is totally normal. But more and more recently with the MCU, they're starting with scripts that aren't fully cooked, TV shows where they don't know exactly where they want them to go. And they get in the editing room and realize, this isn't working. This isn't what we want to do. They have a new idea. They want to set up the next episode of the MCU. So they do transformative reshoots. And all of a sudden, this movie brings in new writers and 1,000 reshoots, 1,000 writers. And I've talked a lot about how things feel written and directed by committee. And it's in particular those projects where that takes place. There's not a clear vision at the beginning that the writer director have, that the producer's given the go-ahead, go make that thing. The producers, they're actually called the MCU Parliament these days. That's literally what they call themselves. They're kind of like managing this thing, greenlighting scripts that aren't polished, tweaking them all along the way. And so it just feels like this thing directed by committee. Well, one of the reports that came out towards the beginning of the release of Loki, Season 2, is that Loki Season 2 is the first MCU project, first Marvel Studios project without any additional photography.
This is maybe the only show or movie in the history of Marvel that had zero additional photography.
There have been other MCU projects in the past that had no changes made. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 had no changes made, but they probably did some reshoots. Loki Season 2 is the first MCU project with no reshoots. They had scripts they wrote. They were really passionate about this direction to take the character, take the mythology, and the story they wanted to tell. And they wrote those 6 episodes, turned them in, they were greenlit, and then they were given the go-ahead to film it. Production went smoothly, and in the editing room, they were like, this works. We didn't miss anything. We've got all the shots that we need. And when the reports came out, they framed it in light of Jonathan Majors. And so it was like, they didn't do any reshoots because of Jonathan Majors. And then the producer guy goes, yeah, I think this is the first thing that had no reshoots. We told the story that we set out to tell beforehand. That's what this is. And so the articles kind of made it about the fact that it wasn't changed. They didn't remove any Time Variance, timely, anything like that.
Did any of the recent developments with Jonathan Majors affect his role in Season 2 or how much he'd be used?
No.
When the actual headline in my mind was, of course that's important too, but the actual headline in my mind was, they knew what they wanted to make at the beginning, and they stuck to the plan, and they did it right.
And we were excited to tell it this season. When we went to shoot it, we shot it, and it's all there on screen. But that's the story we wanted to tell. And that's what's on screen.
They pulled it off. And if you look at Twitter last night, it's a lot of people like, wow, that was really good. Wow, that was really satisfying. Wow, that was like poignant. And there are also, the producers have said that we don't think there's going to be a season 3. We always viewed this as 2 halves. If the spoilers, it ends on a note where this whole kind of tyranny of the TVA sacred timeline is undone. Loki has had a full character arc, become this sacrificial character who gets the throne he's always wanted, but doesn't really want it by the time that he gets it. And he's matured to be a very different person than he was when he actually wanted power. And by the time he takes it, he's become a person that is doing it to give, like, it's a sacrificial choice to give everyone else a chance. It's not about him and his will. It's quite literally about giving everyone else the chance to use their free will, which is the opposite of the idea of the tyrannical God that wants the power to impose his will. But you get this whole story, everyone's cheering, celebrating on Twitter that they pulled it off. Disney Plus shows are so infamous for like an interesting concept at the beginning where we all go, ooh, this is kind of cool, meanders in the middle, and then rushes the finale, and you leave it disappointed. And I would say this season is almost almost kind of the opposite of that, where it's like very chaotic at the beginning, and then by the end of it, you're like, wow, they really did it. They pulled it off. Where am I going with all of this? They knew what they wanted to do. They knew the finale that they were working towards at the beginning. It was part of 2 halves. Other interviews they've come out, they've said, yeah, they didn't really give us any notes on how to set up Kang Dynasty. They didn't tell us what all these other things they wanted us to do. We were just given the command to make the best show that we can. And you watch it, and it feels like that. Like they had an actual clear vision from one creative team. Not a committee, not a bunch of people pestering and arguing. Clear vision. And I feel like you kind of see that all throughout the details. Like, why does Loki have dramatically better production design and kind of a look and aesthetic and better visual effects than so many of these other projects? Why do so many other ones just feel like generic MCU stuff? Because that's what they are. It is like well documented by now, that there are just like this gigantic Marvel machine where they'll start like designing things before the script is done, before the director's hired. Director's just brought in to kind of do specific drama scenes, but they'll even have someone else do the action. That's documented. And then you have like a couple of these anomalies in here where the creative team knows what they want to do and are allowed to do it. So, from the aesthetic of the show to the story we're telling, it's consistent. There's one voice. It's not a bunch of voices pulling in different directions or a bunch of voices kind of canceling each other out, so you just kind of get generic in the middle. It has a distinct vibe to it. It has a distinct look to it. And the characters go on a journey that like by the time you get to the end of it, you feel like you've taken all of these steps that have gotten us to this finale. And it doesn't need to feel rushed, because we're not like removing things and adding things back in and shuffling things around and changing it. And these guys came in at the beginning, they went, all right, we're right here. We're trying to get here. What's the arc that earns that for the character, the choice the character makes? That's storytelling, like telling the story that our character needs to go on to be the person that we want him to be, or if it's a tragedy, for him to reject being the person that we hope that he could be, to become the worst version of himself and potentially see the consequences of that. But this is not a tragedy. This is the redemption of one of the MCU's greatest villains to becoming this not just an anti-hero, but a sacrificial hero. And so what is the journey that he needs to go on? What experiences does he need to have? What are the choices along the way that shape him, change him, transform him? What does he need to learn to care about? What values that he had need to be dropped? Where does he need to see how fleeting and empty his pursuits have been? His new value set, his thing that he now values that he has to lose to be the even better person, or he needs to lose it because he cares so much about them. I will sacrifice me for you, but also for you. What's that journey he needs to go on? And you watch the show, and that's like what this is. It has that. There's a distinct nature to the dialogue. There's a distinct, everything about it has a voice, a style that's missing from so many Marvel projects because they don't have the same creative team at the beginning to the end. Now, there was a shuffle between season 1 and season 2. Season 2 had a clean production. And you watch the season, and that's what you feel as you watch it. Now, if you watched read my initial tweets about it, saw my initial review, I said it was good but messy, and it was very chaotic. And I think this might be an example of a show that is almost... So I probably had the wrong version of watching it. I had neither the advantage of week to week or the advantage of binging it. As critics, we saw the first 4 episodes, waited a month, and then we went to week. When I watched the 2 episodes week to week, it felt right. Binging 4 episodes in a night, it felt very chaotic. And I'm not sure how much of that is the watching it at such a pace that you don't have time to like process everything happening and think about it. How much of that is also the end actually matches the beginning. Even some of my frustrations with the first couple episodes almost felt like, they're just trying to undo the end of the last season. Now they've undone that. Now the real plot kicks in. And you get to the end of the show, or end of the season, and I go, oh, no, this back here, I was wrong about that. Now, I had my frustration along the way, but I was wrong. This did matter. It did tie in, and it was part of that journey and that arc that he was on, that transformation that he was having that led over here. Okay. And that's what you want your finale to do. That's what a good finale does. When it's all written together, and it's not changing all along the way, you get to the end of it and it makes the beginning better. It's more satisfying. Like it works better as a whole when you have something properly written. And that's where so many of these MCU shows feel like the opposite of like, it's really good at building the intrigue. And once you get the payoff, it makes everything else kind of feel a little bit cheaper. This is the opposite. It's like, oh, you had a plan that I just couldn't see. Good job. You're smarter than me, as you should be. That's why you have the job as the writer, not me. Really dug that. All right, a couple. So I'm mostly kind of on my thesis about MCU not having enough scripts greenlit that they actually believe in. Other things to talk about in here. They didn't fully give me Mobius on the jet ski, but they really also leaned into it in a poignant way, where we go. And we get to see his life. We get to see the life that he was supposed to have. And then we bring him back to that. Almost in a more profound sense. Whereas for the whole run of this show, his desire, they gave us a silly version of what it is that made him charming. He wants to ride a jet ski and he's never done it. And it's so specific, and it's jet skis, kind of a funny word, jet ski. There's something in the image of this guy that's always in this suit on a jet ski, and it's Owen Wilson, so it's funny. And then when we finally interpret this and we see who he was, before variance, let's get him out of there. You see this image of his life. That's his job. That's the funny image. But he's a dad trying to make everything work. And so you end with the image of the full picture. That was the silly piece too. That was his job. We see him at his job. TVA job, jet ski job. And the thing that he hasn't had is the life. And it ends on the note of he sees the life that he's happy for his other self that he has it, but he doesn't have it. Like, what do I do now? You want to see what else is going to happen there. Other things to talk about in our finale. I don't know, just like real profound little scene where they have Loki. They do the whole Groundhog Day, repeats everything, and you almost feel like this could have been 2 episodes, but at the same time, it worked with what they did. Like, it was a long episode. There's a lot in there, but it worked. With doing kind of this loop deal, but it was like felt like it was just the right amount. And you get to the point in time where it's not going to work. What do I need to do? He keeps desperately trying to figure out what he needs to do. And he realizes, I want to go back and talk to my friends and get their insight on it. And so we go back to one of our first conversations, maybe the first conversation with Mobius, and reframing these conversations where you have now the very enlightened and mature Loki talking to the unenlightened Mobius, but he's still the same guy that are going to become these friends. He's still the same guy. So going to the guy that isn't tainted by the whole journey we've been on, getting his wisdom of how do you choose who to prune and everything like that. And you just kind of get this really kind of profound moment of the real, what was really going on with him all along the way, and the difference between him and Renslayer. Renslayer's just, as it needs to be done, but in no way acknowledging the cruelty of the action taking place with an 8-year-old. Whereas that's the difference, that some of them still have their humanity, and some people still like, well, what do we need to do to make this work? Just like really profound little moments that have always been in the show, but in the chaos, sometimes you forget that how it can still pause to have these bits, these moments that are like powerful. And then followed by the one with Sylvie where he realizes that, oh crap, I got to kill her. So he goes to talk to her like, here's why I have to do this. And the show has always had a philosophical bent. I suppose it's perhaps our most philosophical show or entry in the MCU. Maybe Eternals has a lot of philosophy in there. Thor Love and Thunder actually does too, but it fails the philosophy. This is probably the one that the nature of the show, the plot of the show, allows it to get away with a lot of philosophy and actual just people talking about philosophy. You can do it and it feels earned. And so you have this discussion of free will, and you have Sylvie kind of making this point of like, people deserve the chance to fight, where He Who Remains phrases all of this as a war? How dare you? Like, we need to get rid of this. We don't have a war. But that's also to say that no one gets the chance except the one that you choose. People deserve the fighting chance to survive. You go, okay, there's something really profound in that. And that's even you get to the core of the Loki character of like, he's this scrapper that the joke of the MCU is that he keeps dying. They killed him off multiple times. You can go back. I was complaining about the existence of this show for years, literally years, complaining that they greenlit a show about a dead character. Because he keeps fake dying. But that's also kind of the thing, that he just keeps fighting, keeps coming back, and like that scrappiness. And the ultimate answer of the show about their answer on free will is that everyone deserves the chance to do that. These realities deserve the chance to do that. Leading to our final kind of sacrificial choice of him, like, I'm not going to send that guy. It's not about the tech. Like, I need to be that. I need to be that thing. I'm going to step into that. I will take it on myself. And finding the way that earlier, like just moments before this, where he's desperately trying to save everything by stopping Sylvie. And you'll have to kill me. And he like desperately trying to stop her. And she's like, you just want the throne. You just want this. Like, no, I don't want the throne. And we as the audience believe him. And she doesn't. Like, she can't with where she's at in her development, her in the spot in the timeline. There's no way to convince her. There's no words to convince her at that moment with where things are at. She can't see the other version to it. And so they have to fight. And he won't make the choice to kill her. also, when we get just moments after this, he won't kill her, but he will step in with himself. I'll lose everything that I value, which I now realize is these people that I couldn't live without in the last episode. I'll go. And he like that idea that he gets the throne, that he's the whole time he's wanted. It's Thor 12 years ago, gets it when he doesn't want it. There's something just profound and powerful about that, with what they were able to do kind of with his journey. Now, all that said, the things that made it kind of beautiful, work well on its own, there's still a frustration in this. That you have a whole TV show that's about the multiverse and time travel, explaining it, getting into the mechanics of it, showing us who's in charge of it. A show very much that is like, Kangs are out there, Kangs are out there, Kangs are out there. Do the whole 6-hour season, or 5-hour season, whatever it is. Get to the end of it. I don't feel like I know any more than I did before. I understand now that we're really playing out what we said at the end of season 1, multiverse is free. Now we get to this point in time of like, Loki is the one that has allowed this freedom to take place. That's leading to the war that He Who Remains mentioned back at the end of season 1, which sets Kang Dynasty, where it sets all of that up. But it's not actually like, well, I knew that's where this was. I knew that it's not different. And it's almost the frustration of, as its own standalone thing, it's really profound. But it's also is designed as an important piece of the larger MCU formula. It's the multiverse saga. This is our multiverse TVA, our time people. We did all of this, and I feel I'm more confused by how time travel works, more confused by, wait, what was going on? Like with Loki, is for an infinity of him creating new branches, every time he did it was a new branch. Is that what we're talking about here? Like how does this work? How does this work? How does it work with the endgame rules of time travel, with everything that he's been doing the last 2 episodes, the whole season, really, with time slippage? How does that work in light of what you've already told us about all of this? And what does it mean? What does the end of this mean? Does it actually change anything? Does it actually matter? Or is it just like we're just telling our own little story? And I think that's where there's a certain amount of like strangeness and oddness to where the MCU is at as a whole, and the way that they're tying their stories together. We've had all these multiverse stories, but each of them kind of feels like it has its own multiverse rules. Like, What If is in canon, and it was like the multiverse was almost destroyed over here. We have our Guardians of the Multiverse, but it has nothing to do with anything else. And then this happens, and you go, oh, cool. Wow, that was profound. I don't know that it did anything to change anything for the rest of the multiverse saga, while being so pivotal to the multiverse saga. That's odd. That they feel inconsequential to each other while being so pivotal to this. Like, I don't know. It's a weird version of it where big gigantic things happen and you go, but does that matter? How does that matter? It's odd. Other thing on here, like didn't, besides being too chaotic in the first half, I didn't have too many things that were like overtly like bugged me, like issues with the show. It's like, oh, that was good. That was profound. That was powerful. At the same time, without like pointing negatives at it, I don't put it in the category of like, oh, that's one of my favorite MCU things. And maybe that's just the nature of how I watch TV shows. Maybe that's the nature of just the show itself. Like, oh, that was cool. I really dug that. It's not the same thing as the big emotions evoked by my top 10 of the MCU. Of just like, wow, that was really cool. That was really special. This is like, wow, that was a really good TV show. Profound. You did something with Loki. I didn't think you could pull that off, and you did. So, I don't know. That's where like a lot of people, this is some of my favorite MCU, top MCU. Like, I'm not that guy. But it's really good. There's a lot of MCU stuff that I think is really good. Anyway, there you have it. There's a bunch of my rambling thoughts about season 2 of Loki, as well as the finale of Loki, as well as the MCU and their reshoot problem, and how when you have a good script at the beginning, it makes everything better. Let me know your thoughts down below, and keep talking movies and TV to